after a full 82 game season full of ups and downs and some of the more surprising trades you'll see, including one that I think may be the most impactful trade in American sports history with Luka Doncic, we are here. It is playoff time, and the Lakers are poised for a genuine championship run in a way that I don't think we could, as Laker fans, honestly say was possible since 2020. In spite of all the positivity, though, there is a genuine tough road ahead. The Lakers, as the 3 seed, are matched up with the 6 seed Minnesota Timberwolves. And while a lot of fans, I think, were happy relative to the alternative, which would have been the Warriors in the 6 seed, playing the Timberwolves doesn't come without its challenges. In fact, I think this series kind of represents something about the NBA playoffs that makes watching basketball so interesting to me, beyond the star playmaking and their shot making ability that will exist in this series. Ant is incredible. Anthony Edwards, LeBron and Luka, obvious. Julius Randle has the potential to be a very big problem. We'll address that, of course. Reeves as a kind of sleeper, or not sleeper in terms of public eye, but in terms of production, like sheer raw numbers, he can sneak up on you to have like 25 to 30 because he kind of just gets in his spots. So with all the tangible player talent that's on the court, and it is a lot, I think for a first round series, this is going to rival the Nuggets and Clippers in terms of just sheer talent on the court at all times. I would say the Lakers kind of beat out all those teams. But the reason I'm so excited about this is because the Lakers, this version of the Lakers and the Timberwolves for the last couple of years, regardless of the Jew trade for Jew as in Julius Randle trade for Karl Anthony Towns, this is still a stylistic difference to a pretty extreme point, I think. The Timberwolves want to keep 2 bigs on the court at all times, essentially, whether it be more agile, kind of shifty, almost wing perimeter player bigs like Julius Randle and Naz Reid. But regardless, they're keeping them out there. Naz and Julius, Naz and Gobert, Julius and they'll start with Julius and Gobert. They're going to be very big up front. And the Lakers, as if you've watched any NBA media recently, you will not go a couple minutes without hearing about how the Lakers don't have a center. And I did a video about this earlier, very short after they beat the Nuggets for the first time after the Luka trade, talking about how the existence of a center isn't necessary because of the way they can play and how big they are on the wings. And since that point, we've seen them more and more take Jackson Hayes out of the rotation, partly because of play, partly because the Lakers really found a pretty incredible 5-man group that they are going to run into the ground. With Luka, Reeves, LeBron, Rui, and DFS, the Lakers commit to small ball in a way that this franchise never has before. And if you saw them play earlier in the year before the Luka trade, you'll know that JJ Redick really wanted to have this option in their toolkit. Even before the Dorian Finney-Smith trade, because he was kind of the first real cog that let their small ball lineups be viable. They were missing Vando because he was hurt, and they had D'Angelo Russell instead of Dorian Finney-Smith. But that didn't stop them from running LeBron at the 5, Rui at the 4 lineups for extended periods. And those lineups were really bad. Like, statistically very bad lineups. But with Dorian Finney-Smith there and Vanderbilt there, 2 more very large bodies that can play on the wing, the identity of this team beyond a center, even with Anthony Davis on the team still, before the Luka trade, the small ball lineups became so much more viable, and offensively, they were able to generate more open looks. And obviously, you put Luka Doncic in that scenario, and that's where he thrives. He's someone that could get paint touches from the outside, from the perimeter, pretty consistently, especially if you give him a chance to pick out the defender he wants to guard him. So You have a team that's going to play, I would wager, anywhere from 40 to 32, or I should flip it the other way, 32 to 40 minutes, depending on how Jackson Hayes looks early, without a center at all, against a team that's probably going to try to keep their massive 7-2 center, Rudy Gobert, in for at least 30 something minutes, 30 plus. And almost all of those minutes, he will have another guy that's at least power forward / small ball center sized. So just thinking about that matchup, it's like, it, not to be romantic, but it's beautiful. The style choices, the way that these two teams approach the game are simply different. And they've reached almost the exact same amount of regular season success. The Wolves lost one more game than the Lakers did. And I think both ways of approaching the game are completely valid. But validity aside, they still have to play the games, and someone has to win. And in my opinion, in this chess match where there's two diametrically opposed styles of play, the Lakers, with their personnel, have a distinct advantage. So I'm gonna, in this little process, it's not gonna be a super long video, but talking about these styles and why, even though it's counterintuitive, going small against a team that is massive at the center position will actually help you create advantage. One, you have to have players that can penetrate and they can beat switches against centers, and Luka Doncic is maybe the singular best player at that. Austin Reeves, no slouch himself, and LeBron James can get it when especially he's on second side actions. But I think it's not just the Lakers personnel, but it's the I was gonna say Jazz. It's the Timberwolves personnel. And the reason I was gonna say Jazz is because I don't know if we can go back to the first year post bubble when the Clippers were on that Western Conference Finals run. The reason they got to the Western Conference Finals is because Terrence Mann in what game was it? In Terrence Mann in the Western Conference semis, when their Clippers were playing the Jazz, dropped 44 points as an off-ball scorer because the Clippers went small. He had Rudy Gobert matched up on him because the Jazz, much like the Timberwolves, didn't take Rudy Gobert out of the game because he was supposed to be their second best player, especially a couple years ago when he was a little more spry. But the Clippers had players, at that point Paul George was very good still, that could break down their man and create a situation where Rudy Gobert cannot just sit in the middle of the paint. He has to be responsible for someone in the corner. And so if he's tagging on a drive, he leaves the corner wide open for Terrence Mann, who at that point was hitting a lot of shots. But Rudy's not coordinated enough with his incredibly long body to tag quickly and then scramble back out and make a closeout and then defend the guy who's attacking a closeout to his top foot. Like, that's a position where Rudy Gobert's defensive value plummets. And the Lakers have a team essentially built specifically to counteract that. Now, on the other side, when you have a massive player like Rudy Gobert is, and despite my joy, the joy that I take in poking fun at Rudy Gobert whenever I can, because that's what the NBA community does. Occupies a very interesting space where there's a certain sect of NBA Twitter, for lack of a better term, that reveres this man as an analytic god. And I'm not going to take away, well, let me not say that. I will take away from his awards and accomplishments in that sense. But in terms of being a skilled basketball player, defensively, he is incredibly so. If you let him play a game where he's guarding a big man at the dunker spot, or you're playing a non-shooter for 35 minutes and he can just kind of roam around, that will blow up your defense, or blow up your offense, excuse me. So he has very real value, and it would be stupid to say he doesn't. But for someone that is supposed to be as dominant of a defender that his resume would suggest he is, there are very specific ways that you could neutralize him. And his lack of an offensive game creates a much bigger issue for his teams, because if you are the Clippers in 2021, or so many other teams that his teams have had to play, of course it's not all his fault that they got eliminated, for sure not. But if you have a center that could stretch, or your small ball lineup that could compete defensively and stretch out his responsibilities on defense and make him have to do more than stand in front of the rim, then his value really plummets. And he's not good enough offensively at all to punish teams for playing small against him. So, in this world where the Lakers are playing small, and I say this world as in not in like some kind of speculative way, the Lakers will play small. If I had to guess, the Lakers will play upwards of 30 minutes with that specific lineup. I'm thinking this is speculative of me because they've shown no real indication of this, but I think the playoff rotation is going to shrink. And they've already kind of cut Dalton out, and Jordan Goodwin's playing like one shift. But I'm thinking, like, if Gabe's not hitting shots, or if Vando's not able to create havoc on defense, it could be close to like a 6 or 7 man rotation. That's a prediction of mine. Regardless, they're going to play with that lineup for a very long time each game. Even though they are small, well, again, quotation marks around the small, because they're very tall. They're small at the 5, that's how we'll say it. Even though they will be small at the 5 for many of those minutes, it's still a position of power. And I think that's what people don't really understand, is that if you may be disadvantaged in one way, which in this case would be having like an elite level defensive 5, which many teams in the playoffs do, and many good teams in the playoffs do, let me correct myself. If you don't have that, you need a weapon that could force teams to adjust to you. If you're continuously trying to adjust to the other team in a series, you're never going to win. We saw that with the Lakers and Nuggets matchups the last 2 years. Darvin Ham and the Lakers did not come into the series with any advantage. They could have. The personnel wasn't perfect for whatever scheme Ham was trying to use, which is a coaching and front office issue for sure. But the fact of the matter is that they were on their back foot constantly. They didn't have anything to create an exceptional advantage. And when they did in the second series last year, when they got 4-1 out of the playoffs in the first round, when Anthony Davis was actually killing it, they weren't able to counter the counter. And they were never in a position to start the exchange either. They were always on their back foot. When they'd finally get a punch in, they'd be like, okay, let's go, we got it. And it just lay out. That'd be it. The game was over, the series was over. You didn't even have to watch the games because you knew exactly what was happening. This Lakers team is incredibly different for all the obvious reasons, coaching, Luka Doncic. But I think the biggest reason this team is different, and the biggest reason the Lakers are going to beat the Timberwolves, and in my opinion, they're going to beat the Warriors or the Rockets after that, and they're going to beat the Thunder or the Clippers, whoever they play after that, is because the Lakers have a tool for which there is no clear answer. You spread out the floor and say, Luka Doncic, you get to choose who's guarding you, and they're going to play you one-on-one, and you're going to score, or they're going to double team you, and then you have LeBron James and Austin Reeves in a 4-on-3. Like, the answer to this equation is not really a coaching thing. You need the personnel to stick Luka Doncic one-on-one so you can stay home on everyone else. And if you don't have that, it's going to be a very long series for you.